It hits about an hour after lunch. Your heart starts pounding. You get a little shaky. You feel sweaty for no reason. Your chest tightens. You assume you're having an anxiety wave. Or you wonder if something's wrong with your heart. You sit there trying to figure out what triggered it, what you were thinking about, what email you read. Nothing triggered it psychologically. You're not having an anxiety event. Your blood sugar just crashed, and your nervous system is doing exactly what it's designed to do in that situation, which happens to look identical, from the inside to an anxiety attack. What I want to give you in this video is the picture of how your blood sugar and your nervous system are wired together, why a crash feels like anxiety, and a simple way of eating that stops the spikes without becoming a project. By the end, you'll know whether what you're feeling is your mind or your meal. Here's the core idea. Your brain needs a steady supply of glucose. It uses an enormous amount of energy for a small organ. When glucose drops below a certain level, your body has a backup plan. It releases adrenaline and cortisol, the same hormones it uses for fight or flight, to mobilize stored sugar from your liver back into your bloodstream. In other words, when your blood sugar crashes, your nervous system fires a stress response to fix it. That stress response uses the same circuit that fires when you're scared. Same hormones, same physical sensations, same emotional flavor. Pounding heart, sweat, shakiness, a vague feeling that something is wrong. If you don't know this is happening, your brain will look around for what's wrong. And brains are good at finding things. By the time the glucose has been mobilized and your blood sugar is back up, you've spent an hour convinced you were about to have a meltdown about your relationship, your work, or your future. The trigger wasn't your life, it was your last meal. So what makes blood sugar crash? Two things mostly. One is eating something high in fast sugar without anything to slow it down. A pastry with coffee, cereal with juice, sandwich with a soda. Your blood sugar shoots up, your body releases a wave of insulin to bring it down, and the insulin overshoots. An hour later, you're below where you started. The crash fires the stress response. The other is waiting too long between meals. If you go 5 or 6 hours without eating, especially after caffeine on an empty stomach, your blood sugar drifts low. Same stress response, just slower onset. This is why mid-afternoon, around 3 or 4, is a classic anxiety window. It's not the time of day, it's the gap since lunch. Here's the eating rule that fixes most of this. It's not a diet, it's a structural principle. Anchor every eating moment with protein and fat first. Then add the carbs. Protein and fat slow the rate at which sugar enters your bloodstream. They flatten the spike. A flatter spike means a smaller insulin release. A smaller insulin release means no crash on the back end. No crash means no stress response surge. This sounds simple because it is. The translation into a meal looks like this. Breakfast. If you have toast, put nut butter on it. If you have cereal, add an egg or some yogurt on the side. If you start the day with coffee, don't have it on an empty stomach. Eat something with protein first, even small, even just a handful of nuts. Lunch. Whatever you're having, make sure there's a real protein source. Meat, fish, eggs, beans, tofu, and some fat, avocado, olive oil, cheese, nuts. Carbs are fine, just not alone. Snack. If you're snacking between meals, anchor it the same way. An apple with cheese, not an apple alone. Crackers with hummus, not crackers alone. Caffeine. Don't have caffeine on an empty stomach. Caffeine raises cortisol, and cortisol on an empty stomach is a setup for a crash an hour later. Eat something first, even small. This isn't about cutting things out. You can still have the pastry. You can still have the cereal. You're just not having them alone naked on an empty system. A second piece, if you've already crashed, if the heart-pounding shaky wave is happening right now, you can short-circuit it with a small dose of protein plus fat, a handful of nuts, a piece of cheese, a spoonful of nut butter. Within 15 or 20 minutes, the wave will fade. If it doesn't, it probably wasn't blood sugar, and you can investigate further from there. The reason this matters is that a lot of what people call anxiety is metabolic. It's not in their head, it's in their meal pattern. And no amount of breathing exercises, therapy, or mindfulness will fix a blood sugar crash. The body needs the fuel, not the technique. Once you've ruled out the metabolic version, the anxiety that remains is the real thing. and the techniques work on that. But trying to apply nervous system tools to a glucose problem is like trying to fix a flat tire with a paintbrush. What I want you to take from this, your nervous system reads your meals as inputs. Spiky meals create spiky states. Anchored meals create steady states. The fix is not eating less, not eating perfectly, not eating clean. It's eating in a way that doesn't ambush you an hour later. Thank you for watching. If you saw the last video about cold exposure and the difference between real regulation and the focused arousal bounce, this video is the metabolic equivalent. The difference between food that fuels you and food that fires your stress response on a delay. Both videos are about reading inputs correctly. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming.